Raymond Scott is a senior associate in the commercial team at Simpson Grierson. He's with me now to talk about the Resale royalty scheme, what it is, where it's come from, and what the broader impact of it is likely to be. Ray, what is it, first of all?
Well, it's a new arrangement that's going to be introduced in New Zealand where artists will be able to, or be entitled to receive a royalty where their artworks are resold on the secondary market. So that'll apply where the resale is through an art market professional, such as a dealer, through a gallery or an art auction house. It won't apply to private sales between individuals, but it is something that will be on an enduring basis and will last for the lifetime of the artist, as well as the duration of copyright thereafter as well. So currently that's after the death of the author and 50 years after, but that's going to be extended to 70 years after. So it's going to be an enduring right there.
Wow. So does it mean art is going to be more expensive to buy?
Yeah, there's a bit of debate and discussion on this. In theory, it will be, because there will be an additional royalty payable. So at the moment, there will be a flat rate of 5% on the sale price that will be applied for that royalty. As part of that, there will be an organisation or a society established to administer the scheme, and they will take a cut from that royalty to actually fund the scheme to administer it. But there will be an additional cost there. There was some question over, well, is this going to have, well, what impact is this going to have on the market? And I think there's two ways of looking at it. One is, what is the fundamental objective of introducing this scheme? And that is, it is a way of additionally recognising the value and contribution of artists, as well as providing an incentive for them to keep producing artworks and to reward them as their works grow in value and as their repute increases. Back in 2008, there was actually a bill introduced with the intention of introducing a scheme like that then. And it discussed, well, would this have an impact on depressing the art market? But it came to the view that no, it wouldn't, for the fact that there are benefits associated with it. People will continue to buy art anyway. And in the scheme of things, the amount of money as part of the royalty wouldn't have an overall material impact negatively.
Yes, and the other thing that was quite surprising I found was that some 80 other countries have already got the scheme working. Now, why has New Zealand taken so long? I mean, apart from the fact that the bill didn't progress, as you're saying, in 2008, what about our art scene has made this so long in coming?
Yeah, very good question. As you mentioned, this has been in the discussion in the background for a number of years. Not really why New Zealand has taken so long to come to the fore with this. Australia introduced a scheme in 2010. The UK introduced a scheme in around 2006, and France, for example, has had a scheme in place for well over 100 years now, and most, well, actually all EU member states have a scheme in place. So I think this is about aligning New Zealand with those major strategic and trading partners. So it makes sense from where New Zealand sits within the international arts industry, I think.
Now, you talked about copyright becoming 70 years. Is that across the board? Copyright will become 70 years?
It will be for certain works. So it'll be, for example, for artistic works and literary works. So currently the term of copyright for those are the life of the author plus 50 years. And as a result of the free trade agreement entered into between the UK and New Zealand, that will be extended to the life of the author plus 70 years. And that again also aligns New Zealand with many international strategic partners, the USA, Australia, the UK. So again, there's a bit of discussion as to what material benefit would there be by actually adding that additional 20 years. But I think, again, looking at the scheme of things, and for the matter of at least aligning New Zealand with the international market, it makes sense from that perspective and ensuring there's consistency across the board there.
I notice in the resale royalty scheme you don't mention the US. Do they have such a scheme there?
No, they don't. And It's a bit of a funny one because the US has always been very firm on its approach for the length of the duration of copyright protection. It's always been a firm believer in having the protection for artistic works, for example, being the life of the author plus 70 years, which is what New Zealand is moving to. But they haven't introduced an artist resale scheme. There's some question about why that is, but obviously there's a bit of a political aspect to it, and whether it's a matter of understanding how an art market sits within a society culturally. France, for example, because the scheme was introduced over 100 years ago, and I think culturally and from a societal aspect, art has a much more intrinsic and nature about it within society, and it's held to maybe a higher regard than some other territories. New Zealand, for example, does have an increasingly sophisticated art market, but I think in the broader sense across the population, maybe art isn't held comparatively to a higher regard as, say, France. Coming back to your question about the US, not quite sure what the perception might be across the broad populace there.
It's interesting that New Zealand does seem to be moving, or the EU seems to be sort of providing the template for many countries, apart from the US. So just in general, in copyright, does America take a different view, just broadly and generally, about copyright than other parts of the world, do you think?
I think so, and this maybe comes back to what are the core industries within a nation, and really the impetus behind protecting them. In the US, for example, there is a significant entertainment industry, yes, both in terms of video and music production, film and television media, as well as now in the digital space. So there has been, I think, historically a tendency to favour trying to protect those industries as much as possible. And again, that's maybe reflected on how each nation approaches things with trying to protect their own core trade and industry.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Now, can you talk about any other tweaks to the Copyright Act that have come out of these free trade agreements? Is there anything else we need to be aware of?
Yeah, so the artist resale royalty scheme is a key one. We'll wait to see a new bill for that, which will provide a bit more detail. There's a few question marks over how that's going to be implemented. Yeah. There'll be the increase in the term of copyright. But one thing that also struck me as being quite interesting was how the free trade agreement with the UK dealt with Matauranga Māori and taonga works. Now, not strictly a copyright question, but broadly within the ambit of intellectual property. I would describe it as providing a stepping stone towards the potential recognition and protection of Matauranga Māori and taonga works in the UK, but without actually committing the UK in detail to anything. And I think that is a positive thing, and I think it's really an achievement on New Zealand's part in negotiating some of the recognitions under the agreement. To give a specific example, the free trade agreement specifically addresses the haka kamete, and it recognises that as having significant value for Ngāti Toa Rangatira. In New Zealand, it's recognised as a taonga work, and Ngāti Toa Rangatira is recognised as the kaitiaki of it. To have that addressed as a specific taonga work or raised in the context of the free trade agreement is quite an achievement. And as part of that, it's said that the parties will work together to cooperate to potentially recognise and work towards protecting the haka kamete in the UK. Who knows what form that might be, and whether there's actually something of substance that might come about. But I think that is a positive step, and also linked to that is that Ngāti Taua will also be involved in the consultation around that because of their role as kaitiaki. I think that's quite important.